welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka probably going to be a villain for those in the MAGA movement, the hardcore MAGA movement, starting now until probably the end of the election. Man, I'm not liking what I'm seeing so far from what we're getting with the Trump campaign. Let alone a lot less from the heavy pundits that exist at the top of the food chain, as you will, that exist with the cat turds, the Joey Manarinos, the Laura Loomers, all of those who reside at the very top of the campaign, who, let's be honest, they're souring the average moderate with a lot of what's going on. So let's not bear the lead here. Let's get right into things. I'm going to do a good bit of some daily news at the top of the hour, and then we're going to get moving into the big topic, which is it over? A lot of this data coming out. The Polymarket opened up with Kamala Harris leading by 6%, let alone the predicted market also having Kamala heavily favored, and even some other smaller markets also having some even more, I guess, emphasis on just by how much she's being favored. All of these things bode very, very, very poorly for one, the current iteration of the Trump campaign, but two, the future of this country. Unfortunately, I have found myself having to side with the Groypers, as it were, the Nick Fuentes crowd. This is something that I've even in my own independent bubble here, been pushing back against, which is just how weak and paper-handed the Trump campaign seems to have been, entirely separate even just from moving away from the energy that existed in 2016. I'm talking a lot more of straight, like, abandoning the base, the tokenism we saw at the RNC, the lackluster VP pick, and we're just going to get into a lot of these different aspects here as we move forward. So the only announcement I have for you guys today is that Jar Openers episode 2 is later tonight. So this is the solo show for myself, and then I'll be with Jar Openers later tonight with Worrell. That'll be 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on both of our channels, hopefully. If not, though, it'll be on his. We're going to do some live testing as soon as I'm done here, and we'll see if we can get that to work. Now, hopefully, my microphone has been working this entire time. It's a good thing it was working, because I didn't check it at all, and that was something I actually need to check on. So, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on X, share the show if you enjoy it, roast me if you hate it. I don't really care either way. I actually like engagement on the political aisle from both sides, and then follow on Spotify too. The show is also available on Spotify in full video form, and sorry, my wife just texted me. And but just share the show if you enjoy it. So to get into things, we're going to start with some of the first news of the day, which is the Dems lied. They tried to spin a recent moment from a Trump speech, which apparently was an attendee who had some kind of medical instance. And this video is just kind of funny, and I'll put it on screen here in just a second. But he paused the rally to allow the medical attention to one of the attendees, and then now the media is spinning it, saying he's having cognitive decline, and that he's pausing for, look how long he's pausing for. He didn't have anything to think of for 20 seconds. And so we'll get into that here in just a little bit. First thing I would need to do actually is connect my headphones. Sorry, I'm actually a little rushed, even though I should have been a lot more prepared than what I am for right now. I apologize for that. I wanted to make sure everything was just clean and ready for tonight. Let me connect these here. And I'll go ahead and swing it over here in just a second as soon as these connect. Okay, there we go. We're good now. Okay. So moving over here, you're going to see my settings here. But this is from Joe Hernandez on Twitter. Now, this is just, I don't think really any kind of leftist spin for any means, but it is a video going viral on TikTok. At least it seems to be the platform that's going viral on, and now being reposted here on X, getting almost 1 million views from Joe Hernandez. But we'll go ahead and take a listen, right? This is them spinning this moment here and them counting the seconds down, acting as if Trump is cognitively deficient.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
Well, while
22.
the president's on pause here, we're going to kind of...
They had to cut away. The man froze.
I think the funniest thing about this is, quite honestly, you can tell he's like looking at something, waiting, and then here, this later moment, right? The cognitively impaired individual in this is the person recording the video. But again, who's to know if this person's doing this intelligently or if they are being malicious with this intent in an attempt to pull the wool over other people's eyes? Especially when I saw the event in live form, it's kind of wild to think that somebody would have thought this. But anyways, moving on from this, though, that was a kind of a smaller one. This one kind of blew me away. This next story is kind of insane. So this next story comes from, again, we're going to go Kamala Harris again. The Secret Service broke into a hair salon. Right, so you make sure everybody heard me. Kamala Harris's Secret Service broke into a hair salon. Now, I had to read that headline twice. That's why I said it twice to kind of nail it down. They covered the security camera of the business with tape to let people use the bathroom during her fundraiser. Right, seems pretty violatory. But according to the Gateway Pundit, they also left her business unlocked, and the owner is unsure how long her business was left that way. So this is from MJ Truth Ultra on X, on Twitter, whichever one you want to go by, right? About 300,000 followers, pretty solid account I go to pretty oftenly. But this is who's reporting it. Then they covered the security camera with tape to let these people use the bathroom during a fundraiser. Now, he says she's a lawless vice president. She will be a lawless president. But the owner of the 413 Salon in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, closed down her business for the day to comply with the Secret Service request. I'm sure she wasn't prepared for what occurred. Now, I think the video is really, less important, but this is what occurred, right? This is the Secret Service member who's going, and of course, Twitter's going to do this thing when it loads the video out. Go ahead and refresh it. And and for one, the first thing I'll note too is I don't get why they protect the identities of public officials. It's one of these moments that kind of like, it does bother me because like this person is acting as a public servant. So if anything, they should not be granted the privilege of their identity being hidden, especially when doing a public action on public duty for a public event. But I digress. And so this is just the Secret Service member kind of pacing around, irritated, and probably wanting to make sure that they had all of their bases covered so that the salon owner would not know what was going on. And I doubt that they allowed or even told the salon owner that they were going to use it for the bathroom. But again, I haven't confirmed that. This is just an early report showing these incidents of people going in there and using the bathroom and using the salon for the bathroom. I found it just to be disturbing, if anything, but I think it's very indicative of already a lawless action by the president. That just seems to be, we make up rules and we do as we please. Very indicative of very tyrannical actions here. So, and again, we're going to hit some of these quicker ones off at the top, less important. I imagine that one will bubble over into being a bit of a bigger story, but as well, we have all this stuff going on with the Trump campaign. It's probably going to sit secondary until the news cycle at least gets a little bit further into the week. And I'm sure it will be a matter of debate as such. Probably not for debate, but it will be used to attack Kamala Harris as long as it stays in the news cycle. But Axios dropped their new Trump smear on the other side, attacking Trump, which is that he, and spoiler alert, not going to be family friendly, is that he called her a bitch. So that's what the new smear campaign piece is running with. Again, one that seems to me just weak. I guess like it's kind of been a long time running that we've been sitting here and saying Trump says mean words. Trump, grab him by the pussy was, I mean, how long has that been out and about? It seems kind of like a weak, kind of redundant attack. It's like, do you think that the base of Kamala and all the leftists and leftoids don't already think that he, or assume, I guess, that he talks like this? And obviously the Trump campaign and staffers denied the allegation that he uses this kind of language. But again, I digress. It's not like you're going to convince, a leftist who read that any otherwise, right? So I will go here from Mario to Fall. I'll swing it over here once more. He called her a bitch behind closed doors, right? So obviously, like if he did it in public, that'd be one thing. But now they're just saying that he does it in private. How do you verify something like this? But again, he allegedly did it on multiple occasions. But then the Trump campaign outright denies that he uses this language. So a lot of he said, she said, another smear campaign, obviously, to further poison the well with Donald Trump. But again, I will say one more time, it doesn't make much sense to me, particularly because the attacks and main smears against Trump is that he's like a bad character individual. So it doesn't really make sense to me why they would go a bit further down that line. I mean, I feel like the implication is there with all of this stuff that they say that he says, is that he obviously uses profane language and probably speaks pretty poorly of other people. But again, just a side point, some of this daily news off the top that is just kind of odd. I guess I'll put it at that. And then again, Drew Hernandez actually later reported, or posted, I should say, an earlier clip of Kamala Harris saying, well, you know, women's got a choice. She can either be tough, or I guess maybe reword this. Women have a tough line to walk. You either are tough or you get called a bitch, or you either act like a bitch. And that was just like, okay. like it's just like, it's kind of an odd smear to go with when your own nominee uses that language in reference to how to walk a fine line between men and women. And again, it just is a very weak attack all around. But again, Axios is doing its most to poison the well, as most of these will be. Now, inflation is hitting hard because a new figure shows that a third of parents in America had to cut back on necessities because of back-to-school costs. This is actually also from Mario Nafal as well. I saw somebody chat in there. Looks like YouTube censored you out. I apologize about that. Let me make sure here. Okay, yeah. 6% rise in back-to-school costs forces 33% of parents to cut back on necessities. It's a disturbing figure because a 6% rise is obviously something going from $1 to $1.06. And especially when you're going, when you're thinking of very lower cost items, especially with like pens and pencils and things that only cost $2, $3. Percentage increases of that low shouldn't be that alarming, but to see that they're having that much of an effect, forcing 33% of parents to cut back on necessities is a large kind of effect that is a little bit alarming, showing how close to the line people are with their finances. Sandor Clickade says, your beard has grown a beard. Yes, I almost trimmed it earlier today. In fact, I probably should have, to be quite honest with you. It's getting to be like that boneless beard kind of perspective. Let me actually put it on myself. It's getting like these low ends down here. And it's like almost like if the sun hits it at the right light on the very low ends, it's like it becomes see-through. And like, I just don't like that at all. Makes me feel uncomfortable and it looks just super awkward. But I'll probably need to trim it very, very soon. But the source for this is the New York Post. Now, the Prodigy survey says it shows over 10% of families can't afford the essentials, and 33% of parents are sacrificing spending on necessities like groceries to cover school supplies. Now, it didn't say specifically how much they were cutting or sacrificing their spending on necessities. It essentially just said that about a third of all parents were admitting to having to sacrifice necessities because of the school supply cost, which I think is, again, and I'll restate this, I think very indicative on how close to the line many families are currently walking, facing that kind of poverty net threshold. And it's very sad. It's something I don't want to wish upon anybody, especially somebody who's about to bring into this earth a newborn daughter, having to look at some of this in the eye and the finances. And it goes along with some of the visuals we get that's posted with, not even just school supplies, but you get the Costco, basket get posted from your trunk and you'll be like, you won't believe this costs $655. And in all reality, it is, it's like a bag of meat, it's like a bag of lettuce and like two other random things. It's rather unfortunate. So to move on from there, though, we're going to get into a bit of the actual news here. So this is the Polymarket update. Kamala opens up with a 6% lead over Trump. Now, this is from Chief Nerd on Twitter. He says, thoughts. Now, this is kind of just, a bit eye-opening, but it's been something I've been paying attention to for quite some time now, especially with the predictit market, which I hear recently, I've put a lot more stake on the predictit market just based on the fact that it's the crowd or the wisdom of the crowd. And there is a visible share amount that you can see, which about 33.5 million people have participated in. But we'll focus on the Polymarket for right now. She's opened with a 6% lead over Trump, 46% to 52%. Now, obviously, this is kind of shoring up what we're going to get into with the attacks with the Joe Rogan incident, with the mega pundits and cat turd, as well as the bickering going back and forth with Tim Pool and the RFK, as well as it stems all, again, not stemming, but it's just a parallel, a pattern, if you will, from what we saw in the reactions from Kyle Rittenhouse, people essentially forcing a kind of struggle session against these individuals for them stepping out of the complete lock and step from the mega camp. And I think it all hinges on the fact that they're fearful. Right? I think that they are living in a very fearful environment, most particularly because obviously if the election is at stake, but it's more so than the election. I think most people, especially those in the MAGA side of things, the right wing, view this election not to be just for this upcoming 4 years. They view this to be a indictment on, what would you say that? The country. They view this to be like the stakes of the future, not only just for, I mean, definitely not the 4 years, but literally for the entirety and the future of this country. A lot hinges on this. And so with that being said, obviously the fear of losing this, and even more so than just the fact of the last 4 years of work being for absolutely nothing. Kamala Harris. That's actually pretty solid. I like that. It's why we're getting these unhinged emotional reactions, is because these guys are seeing all of the polling data, they're seeing all of the reactions, they're seeing the hype trains, they're seeing how the social media is operating, and they're becoming more and more and more fearful. Thus, the fear leads to having these like very, very occult like struggle sessions with Kyle Rittenhouse, which is like, you need to be more responsible. Like, what are you doing? There's no way. You can't be saying that. And it's just like, it comes off unhinged, but it's because they are clearly looking this data in the eyes, also being like, dude, there's a real chance we lose this thing. Let's see. Senior says, did you hear about the new rule added to women's boxing? No punching in the balls. I mean, only in 2024, right? And only in 2024 would we not need to be a new rule. But I mean, 100% correct. And to see the fact that both of those are going to make it to a gold and a chance at the gold, I think is also unfortunate. I was really, really hoping that we could even kind of get this moment where one of them would get smacked out, right? Like you get like this kind of like this triumphant moment, but at the same time, like, wouldn't that then work against the argument that men should compete in the female sports if then one of them does get like smacked out? And then you'd be like, well, look, women can clearly beat her. It's like she's probably in the right field. So I wouldn't know how that would have worked. It would have been a good way, a good sentiment either way around. It is actually hilarious though. But again, preceding these emotional reactions, I think is because the overall sentiment from everybody in MAGA is that there's actually a very viable chance that we do lose this thing. Now, I will say, I don't think that needs to be completely organic. Like, we're going to lose it just because people didn't vote and we lost purely on fair grounds. Like, no, we're going to lose because they're going to do some stupid ass stuff to like try to steal the election again. And if not, I mean, they're already doing it. And I have a couple more news stories to even speak to this. So I think the fear is very, very real. And and I'm saying this for somebody who is going to be voting for Trump, who does want Trump to win. I'm saying this because it's like, if we don't get our acts together soon and actually realize this to be a real thing that's occurring and there's a real chance we lose in a very poor way, then I think it actually is going to honestly affect us very, very, very poorly. By the fact of losing this election, I don't think America will exist ever again. And in fact, I think the installation of Kamala as a candidate, thus winning an election when nobody voted for her, I mean, obviously voting for her in the primary, but her getting up to there, nobody voted for that, will be the death of the Republic. And I would echo the sentiment of Tim Pool. Gav Doge says, the real female Olympians need a boycott. They do. I think Matt Walsh is 100% correct when he says that the only way that any of this stops or goes anywhere is when women themselves who compete in these sports alongside these individuals when it happens need to speak up the moment they see it happening. and not with what happened with Riley Gaines, which was was cool with it, say nothing all the way until you're on the podium. Then once you're on the podium, you're like, oh, okay. Now I'm mad because I'm going to lose my position here. And it's like, that was like, it's too late, dude. You should have said something the moment he was there, not wait until you were going to lose the race. Or I guess in her case, they both tied, but they gave Leah Thomas, the male, the nod, and then they made her take second. And that's obviously for publicity. But the moment to say, hey, yo, was a lot longer before you made it to that podium. And say Michael of Cigarillo says, I don't know if I even said that right. The other one just won the gold as well. Oh, did they just win the gold? See, and I've not even been paying attention to the Olympic stuff as well, because the Olympics, I mean, like, I want to watch it. I did. But that opening ceremony was just like so disgusting, especially for me being, I'm Christian. Like, just like, I can't do it. Like, my wife will throw it on the TV and I'll occasionally like glance over and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it, man. Like, I don't want to give him my attention and my time, man. I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard than that. But I will say, we'll move on to one of this next thing here, which is in the same exact light of this election interference and what I'm talking about losing inorganically. We have Pennsylvania is essentially preparing people to not have election results on the night of the election. This is from Joe Hernandez. And then, yeah. Gaines only spoke out after her career was over and buckets of money were thrown at her to speak out. Exactly right. And that's what I mean with like, we're not going to move the needle if it's only the people who actually lose on the podium ever say anything. And I think the same thing was true, in fact, with, forgive me, I'll go back here. The same thing was true with Taylor Silverman, who was that skater who's with the Tim Pool Productions now. And I think hers was specifically that they only gave money to the top 8 positions, and she got 9th, but it was because a transgender placed ahead of her. And it wasn't until they saw the polling that she was going to lose money benefits for placing so low, that's when she finally decided to say something. And again, it's too late, man. You don't wait until it's like you're actually going to be costed personally. You speak out because the morality of that choice or that value would deem it to be so, not because of the outcomes. And then Kev Doge says, I saw hilariously bad Australian breakdancer. I did. I actually literally saw all that covered on X all over. I had to actually move it out of my timeline because I was like, this isn't, I mean, it's funny, but it's like, it's not like that important. And again, you're 100% right. It's full of memes. It's like a long line of just absurdity. But I think, isn't that indicative and reflective of like the society we have now, where it's like our Olympics are even just a joke? Like our Olympics are like what is, like our ancestors would come here and they'd be like, dude, what is this circus show? Like, what are these monkeys doing? And like the Olympics of back in the day was like actually like for glory and honor, and the stuff now is just like kind of like a sad sideshow where people just kind of make fun of it and poke and prod. Also, again, I have a small inclination to watch the Olympics, especially when I hear it and it's like on TVs nearby. And definitely in no way, shape, or form was I interested after seeing like most of the performances. Sinner says the ancient Greeks loved a good breakdance. Yeah, I'm sure they did. I would love to know what they would think about the Australian breakdancer. And I think the funnier thing too, because I didn't actually watch the entire thing, I'm pretty sure it was with no sound, right? Wasn't it like a silent? Like, silent breakdancing? That's so cringe. Like I'd be like weeping in the stands if somebody made me watch that. But no, to go back to the Pennsylvania, I think Drew Hernandez is actually on point here. He says, translation, Pennsylvania will be rigged for Kamala Harris and it will be announced days after the election, because this is what they had to say. Pennsylvanians won't always know the final results of all races on election night. Any changes in results that occur as counties continue to count ballots are not evidence that an election is rigged. See the full explanation and vote. Like, I mean, come on, dude. Like you have to be retarded to believe this. They're just getting out and ahead of things, because when we get, once again, another one of those Wisconsin graphs that go up, over, just to make sure it's always ahead of Trump, no matter how many votes he gets in, it's going to be like, dude, there's going to be no fooling anybody this time around. Like, you might have gotten away with it because it was during COVID and people were terrified of the tyranny of the government and it seemed a bit more plausible. you're not going to be able to pull the wool over people's eyes this time around. Like, I think that right there is like, what are we doing right now? We have like less than 90 days until the election. Like, get people in Pennsylvania right now, because fix this, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Get like extra monitors in there, get extra ballot counters in there, get whatever you need in there, dude. But to say like almost 3 months ahead of the election, like, hey, dude, results subject to change. It's like, dude, like, bro, like, no. And then I think it's exactly right. You know, Drew Hernandez right here is saying, you know, translation, Pennsylvania will be rigged. And what am I supposed to take from that, dude? Like, am I supposed to wait for every other state to come out ahead of time and say, hey, their election results might change and you're not going to get them on them? It's like, come on, dude. Come on. That's a no. But then he also says, this is why Kamala Harris and Tim Walz appear to be acting as if they have already won the election everywhere they go. Now, I will say, I think there's like two camps to that too, and I can see both sides of the aisle there. But Sandor said, I mean, Kamala is hot for an old lady. Get out. Get out. No. I mean, what do they say, right? Black don't crack, man. Black don't crack. And I think she's an example of that, right? She's a bit older. She's like about to be like, what, 60 years old? I have to admit, though, she doesn't look old for where she's at. Although she does have like that crazy stuff on her neck where it's like 1,000 skin folds on top of each other. It makes people think she's like wearing a mask or something. But to speak towards what he just said there, which is why they're acting as if they already won the election, right? Getting like this really hippy dippy, goofy, like Tim Walz walking around doing this weird dancing and stuff, I think is 100% right. And I think there's two ways you can look at it too. I think there's like two ways, only two ways. One is that the internal polling that the Democrats are seeing is actually so favorable, and it's like their results are being so overstated. And it's like, yeah, dude, the resistance is nothing. You got this in the bag. Is a reason to explain why they dump Shapiro, they take Tim Walz, and they go further to their base with appealing, and they start dancing around and doing all this crazy stuff, is because they got no fears. It's in the bag. The polling is showing like Trump's way too far away to close these gaps, just do whatever. Or the other way around, where the polling is so bad, they're like, don't ruin Shapiro's career right now, get somebody else in there. And then once you get this other individual in there, forgive me, which is Tim Walz, you can essentially commit political suicide with both of those people, and then boom, doom. And that way you're not burning out your top of the ticket people like Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom, or I think I might be forgetting one, like Pete Buttigieg, or some of these people who are have a lot more public name recognition, a lot more SEO as it was. It says, I had to crack out the Ouija board and tell Granddad not to vote for Biden this time. Oh man, I think I actually saw a meme that literally had it was like a ballot person was like out by a cemetery, and it's like, man, looks like they're getting started early, guys. Does it crack if it's only like 15%? That's actually a good point. You know, because what is she 15% black? Is that the percent we're deciding on? It's not 50. It's not even 50. No, I don't even think it's 50. You're probably right. It's probably somewhere between like, you know, 35 and 15%, maybe even less than that. Who knows how much is actually like the Indian heritage we're seeing that's supporting the melanin of the forward-facing person we're looking at. It's a funny joke, dude, and I think it's kind of wild that this party that's so hell-bent on identity politics is like, oh, we don't care that she's black. Like, what, dude? Like, bro, like, you'll sit there and rip like the first light-skinned person who tries to act a certain way, but for Kamala, it's no different. It's like, but again, I'm white. I don't understand the community like that. I guess it's just something I wasn't born to understand. But let's go to this next part here, right? Which is, along with this election news, we also have, and this is just from a little bit ago, around 2:30, from the leading report, Georgia has reportedly removed 150,000 voters off their active voter rolls. Now, I think, if anything, the first thought when my mind goes to when I see this was Georgia last election was decided by way less than 150,000 voters. On top of that, with the Georgia voting fraud allegations that's been going on, it's been disputed, the numbers anywhere between like around like 150 to 230,000 votes that could not be verified. And I wasn't sure, and forgive me, because I'm not sure if it was the chain of command that couldn't be verified, or if it was the specific ballots themselves, whether it was a size issue or a printing issue. But either way, that is insane. Now, I'm sure that we're going to get more data speaking to that specifically, and I'm curious if that's going to end up being based on Social Security not lining up, whether it's a legal immigrant kind of issue, or whether that is literally like 150,000 dead people voted in the last Georgian election, and then that was the whole cleanup. Or could it be a mixture of all of that together? Like, who knows? But again, nefarious, all the like. I've never seen a state dump that many voters off in just a short period of time. 50% would suggest her father was straight out of Africa. Yes, 100% correct. And I've always had that feeling, because I've never been that tuned in with like how black is Kamala, right? Like, who even cares? But I mean, now people care. And even then it was like, I never really thought she was like 100% black. She has like that kind of Gene Aiko kind of mix to her, where it's like, she could be anything, honestly, dude. Put her in Jamaica, put her in the Philippines, put her in Thailand. it would fit no matter where or whenever she was at. And some people, and we'll move on to one more smaller story before we get into breakdown a bit more stuff here. So we'll go here. Former YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki, I have no idea how you pronounce her last name, has died of cancer at the age of 56. Now, a lot of people have been taking this news and running with it, saying it's a sign that God is real. Rejoicing in this, it's rather unfortunate. I'm not going to rejoice that somebody passed away. I know that they might be a very, very evil person, but I just don't have the heart to gloat over someone's death, especially because we don't know if there are people who actually were innocently tied to this person who may have been negatively affected. But I will say she probably is in hell. I will say that right now, especially going off of the majority of what she did in terms of censorship, in terms of the things that she did during COVID, all of the applications that she forced through. Essentially, I mean, you could say that she would have a hand in some people's, what's the right word for you two? Vaccine injuries and things of that nature as well. But again, I think a lot of people are going to be covering this for a short period of time, especially due to the fact of how much impact she definitely had on the platform itself. She could pass as Dwayne Johnson's sister. Yeah, I mean, you're killing it with the funny quips right now, Mr. Michael. She probably took the jab. I think you're right. They're probably saying died of cancer at 56, but was somebody who was specifically known and was notorious for the censorship over the vaccine in particular. It probably was because she took like 19,000 boosters. Brought to you by Pfizer. Brought to you by, like, that's who she was, right? Like, it's just like, shove it in there, dude. Like, I just do what the TV tells me, guys. Like, that's what I do. Like, it's so ridiculous, man. Sandor, I will pray for you. I will pray every day that the vaccine comes out of your body as if you were Wolverine rejecting a bullet. You just like sit there and it's just like liquid just starts shooting out of your face. Like, reject it. Be stronger than that. He says, yeah, she blocked all the alternate medical advice. Yeah, it was specifically like the hydroxychloroquine, monoclonal antibodies, and I might be forgetting one more of the more of the major kind of over-the-counter medications and processes that people had available to them. Ivermectin. Dude, how did I forget ivermectin? But there was like essentially all three of those that she was essentially, anybody who posted them or talked about them was not even just demonetized, but completely pulled off of YouTube, and outright denying the public to hear, or I guess abusing the First Amendment, not allowing to hear medical advice that may have otherwise helped them. Hopefully a placebo, bro. Yeah, right. Yeah. Hopefully it was fake. I mean, maybe it's a real chance that it was. Now let's get to the crux that's going to make me a villain, guys. Because it has to happen. And I'll say it once more. I am forced, and I say that not because I want to, I have any disdain towards it. I actually like Nick Fuentes. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's great. But the Trump campaign is flailing. It's not doing good. It's definitely not. So let's start with what Candace Owens had to say. So this is Candace Owens' take. Let me go ahead and knock some of these tabs out before my computer starts smoking. So this is what she says, because Ashley St. Clair herself, although remember, never e-girls, and this is not an endorsement on St. Clair. Mega energy is very strange lately. Trump campaign needs a shakeup. Now she said it in the most like I'm not going to offend anybody kind of way. But still the sentiment is true. Now, Candace Owens quoting this, saying in 2015, Donald Trump went on the Alex Jones show and he didn't care what the mainstream media said about it because he knew they would lie and call him a far-right white supremacist no matter what he did. He ran a campaign for the forgotten men and women who had been similarly dismissed and smeared by the establishment coastal elites. You know, making claims again, if you remember, like, I'm not going to take their money. Like, they can keep, those donors can keep their dollar bills. Like, I'm here for the people. Again, energy that we haven't seen at all this year. In fact, it's been the opposite, bragging about the donations from Miriam Adelson and many others. So fast forward to 2024, and his campaign is distancing from Project 2025 because that same media is lying about what exactly it entails with the same tired accusation of far right. Candace is saying this. I'm voting for Trump because he's the better candidate, but the dragon energy of 2015 feels as though it's been replaced with consultants who care more for nice headlines than fighting for truth. Just let Trump be Trump. Then St. says, I'm in New Zealand. We had no choice. Plus mom and cancer. I didn't want to wreck her horse. That's fair. I understand that. And I mean, honestly, like, especially in those early days too, in the first, like, probably like month, you don't know what to believe at all. Because let me say something. Let me actually completely copy Nick Fuentes. Let me say something entirely true. We are living in a period of fifth generational warfare. And obviously that means information warfare, right? That means like the media is lying to you nonstop. That means like on X, it's happening even in more egregious forms too, where you're getting like bot accounts. You'll post something and then someone responds and they go, "Nuh-uh, you're lying. Trump is an orange man bad." And then you go and you look at it and the guy's got like 7 followers. And you can tell it's like all these like weird posts and numbers or like letters. You're like, what is this? And that's because we live in a period where even back in 2020, where it was like egregiously so, and now it's gotten a little bit better since Elon Musk bought X. But my heart goes out to you, Sandor, truly. And that's because even in my own personal life, not me personally, but I know people who are also essentially guilt tripped into doing it as well. And on those same lines of what you're saying too, which is like, do you want to kill your loved ones? How dare you? And it was just like, you don't want to be put in that position. And if you don't know, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, and you can't make heads or tails of anything because everyone's saying everyone else is lying. You're just left to your own devices. And so for you probably doing something like that, you probably figured I better make the best choice that I think I can possibly make, which I think was the right thing to do, to be honest with you. Now after the fact, especially in New Zealand, because you're not allowed much of a chance to even fight some of this stuff back. I mean, like, what kind of position were you in? Honestly, no. I think though, in the States, it becomes a bit different, especially when people who we get a few more months out, and a lot of this data starts to come out. And then I think that once you start to get a trove, and then you see the patterns in which the media is behaving upon the vaccine, that's when you go like, okay, like now I can see the picture here a bit more clear. And then obviously it begins to build up the sentiment of distrust, and to eventually you move and you find these stuff where you go, okay, this is fake. Like I'm not taking this bullshit. And then again, but not many people can have that strength though. Gaz says, I also find it strange that Trump is saying Biden wants to join the re-election. I saw that too. And what's funny is not many people covered it. I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I didn't even put that in my notes anywhere. But I do know exactly what you're talking about. It was like this weird like Truth Social post that he put out where he's coming back for Kamala. Like he's angry that Kamala stole it from him. And it's like, that did give me like, is grandpa okay? like that was kind of the vibe that I got even reading that kind of post. But I did see that it was a Truth Social post. But again, multiple unhinged Truth Social posts, right? Like that one about the Iran after the assassination attempt. It makes you think again though too, like who's in his ear advising this guy, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, after all this happens, his first thought is he was like, and Iran did it. And it's like, bro, like, bro, maybe it's Chrisley Savita, maybe it's Susan Wiles, maybe it's both of them. But it's a very apparent, I think, to me, to Candace Owens, to Matt Walsh, to many people who are on the dissonant right, that there's clearly an issue in terms of campaign management and advisement as well. Like, what are these insane kind of one-offs? But then again, it's going back to what Candace said, that energy is non-existent. The 2016 energy is like, it's really not there. We saw a bit of it at the RNC, a little bit, kind of a flash. I think we honestly saw a bit more of it coming from Hulk Hogan than we did from Trump himself. But now you do get these points where he was like, and look, this person donated $1 million and this person donated $1 million. And then in 2016, he's like, I don't need your money. We're taking the country back. And, it's very two entirely different sentiments. Now, yeah, and actually, give me a minute, I can't talk. Michael of Cigarillo says he used the donor class as an attack against Jeb Bush. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. He went on stage and was like very specific, Trump hands. I'm not taking these donors' money, right? Like, I don't need the donor money. And I remember that specifically was a moment in the audience where even libertarians were like that's when you get people like comic Dave Smith who were jumping in, being like, smacking their hands, like, that's what we want. That's the stuff, dude. And it's just not here. We're just not seeing it at all. Now, what 80-year-old man has a 3-inch growth spurt? That was kind of odd. And that was like the Nephilim post. Biden came back and he's actually 7 foot tall. He became the world's tallest man overnight to have one final headline. I don't know. I do see a little bit of videos of Biden here recently. He was like on vacation at a beach somewhere, and he looks like he is literally weeks or days from death. And to speak to that too, the medical emergency with Biden was confirmed. That happened in Vegas. It was confirmed earlier today, or it might have been last night. It was confirmed, and they had the codes from the police enforcement too. Like 421 was the code, and that's the presidential code for posturing for emergency service vehicles because there is an imminent threat of injury or sickness to the president. So that did get confirmed. So we still don't know if it was Parkinson's or if it was like a heart attack, a stroke, something along those lines. I think it's yet to be told. Sandra also says, or Kev Doge says he's angry and wants to come back. He has said it a couple of times. Now, what's crazy is I don't think Biden at any form has any idea what's going on. I think if anything, it would be Joe Biden was angry and wants to come back. I think Joe is just like, he's there, dude. He's there for the ride, man. I think if in fact anything, it's all of those who are going to be super closely tied to the Biden administration, which would be the Hunter Biden, the Joe Biden, and any of those associates that would be linked to the Hunter Biden scandal, as well as the Burisma stuff. They want to get back in office because they lose their kind of protections if they're no longer in the administration, right? And then you allow a chance for Kamala Harris in the reigning deep state that takes over to then discard of the Bidens and say, look, we do care about law and order. We did look into Biden and we did disagree, and see this stuff with Burisma. It allows them a chance to appeal to the law and order people, and as well as it appeal just to the overall that they're going to play fair, even though we all know how this stuff works. Now, Cleveland says they laugh Republicans for having Hogan talk, but not a word about the condescending twerking over here. I mean, what's insane is the twerking is just like, I'm not surprised by it. I'm not shocked by it. I mean, if anything, and you guys are on the internet all the time, dude. Like, if anything, like that tracks. That's the way it works now. Like, we even saw in the Olympics, what was it, that Canadian girl? Like, after she got like a second or third place, she just starts twerking. It's like, bro, like, it's just like it's instinctual for women to do nowadays. It's just to do like whorish activities. I'm not surprised or shocked. If anything, I figured there would have been more of it. If anything, I would expect the Sam Smith like demon performance with horns coming out and people like cheering on while they're all like carrying pitchforks in, because it's getting to be like that overt that they don't care that they're not appealing to the public, or maybe it's more so that the public is so bent to that now. Like, the public is this pop culture kind of bubble, this new modern day social media hype girl, boss girl 2024 kind of stuff. It's hard to really honestly tell, but I think it does lean a bit that direction, just based on how much of the entertainment we get and what people kind of consume on a daily basis. That seems to be becoming the standard rather than moving away from it. Yeah, our culture has fallen. Very much so. But again, this also speaks to the fact of why Trump shouldn't be deferring or pandering or the campaign entirely to those on the left, but rather pander to the base, move the needle back in the direction that people want it to go, right? And this is speaking again on the stuff with the RNC, with like the Amber Rose and the tokenism and just the overwhelming kind of like wanting to appeal to just standard people without any kind of real foundational Christian ethic framework kind of backing this stuff. No, why couldn't Tinder and twerking be a thing when I was trying to move? We were too gaslit and fluoridated. I think you're onto something right there. Too much fluoride in the water. Now, I do have one of our first clips though here for the day, and this has actually caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it. But this is Alex Rosen. Now, I will say he is looking rough, dude. Like, I do appreciate what he does, which is, you know, do all of the pedo hunting and tracking down all of these pedophiles and getting them on camera and doing work that police won't do, or I guess, or maybe rather more unwilling to do. He needs to go to the gym, hit the weights, stop eating food, and it kind of disturbs me. He says, please do not disturb, but he's disturbing me right now. I don't understand how someone as active as him could be this big. Now, I know he's a big guy, but let me not just dump on him. Anyways, though, this goes along with the lines of, should we be worried about Trump? And this is Alex Rosen's take on it when he was on the Twins pod with the Hodge twins. Now, again, anybody in chat, if anything's wrong with the sound, if it's too high or too low, let me know. I will adjust it accordingly.
What do you think is going to happen in this next election?
Trump's going to get back in. I mean, obviously 2020 was rigged, but you know, that's clear. But I think that was the plan to rig 2020. And, you know, Trump is going to come in as the savior. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's the Antichrist or not. I mean, you know, who's to say we know that? You know, it's not for us to figure out. But I just think Trump's going to pass a lot of shit like hate speech laws and basically a lot of oppressive stuff, like kind of like Bush with the Patriot Act. But it's going to be under the guise of patriotism and being based. Like, you know, I get Trump was better than Biden. I want to pay less taxes, all that stuff. I want stocks to go up, fine. But Trump still calls himself the father of the vaccine. Like, I'm not voting in this election. Like, until Trump apologizes for the vaccine or acknowledges that some people have died from it, I think, you know, people got to be very worried about Trump.
Now, I don't think that people need to be, worried about Trump. I think people need to be worried about who's in his camp, like who's in his ear, who's advising him, who is in his headspace, making him make these top of the line executive decisions that shape his campaign. And forgive me, let me make sure my microphone is okay. The setting kind of looks odd. Let me go back up here. Love me some Hodge twins. We got us a damn good show. Hey, I appreciate that very much. The Hodge twins are actually spot on. I love the Hodge twins. They kind of fit that mold with like Jake Shields, although a lot more so because they're actually like on a side, like they are on the right wing, and they are guys who appeal to the very masculine portion, especially because I'm even someone who followed them back in the day when they were doing fitness videos in the back of their car, just recording and doing basic stuff. I mean, these are guys I listen to like get myself into shape and to like go to the gym and be big and all that. So there's somebody, again, I agree 100% because I think that they are in line with exactly like some of the voices that men do need to hear. They're funny. And as well as they come, they're not like, they're very objective. They're just telling you what they think. Like they don't have a kind of like shill or I guess a position that they're always trying to put forward. So they're always willing to hear people out, which is how you get a Fuentes on. It's the same way you get a Destiny on there. And now Alex Rosen, they're getting people from all over. And I think it's phenomenal. They had a recent one. I can't remember what the fighter's name is. He's like from the UFC, but he was started like talking shit about Ben Shapiro. I was like, dude, it's like maybe the best moment on any kind of podcast I've seen in quite some time. It's pretty funny. And then Kev Dog saying, make fat shaming great again for real. Yeah, and see, now in the Antichrist thing is a tired argument. Now, I see where you're coming from, Kevin, and I think it's a tired argument too. And like, you know, this is an argument that's been echoed by, what's the guy's called? Donnie Darkened and that crowd. I can't think of what the other guy is who was mainly pushing that. But I think more specifically, though, that argument was a lot stronger even earlier in the campaign when he was specifically kind of painting himself with the Daily Meme team as like he was on the cross, right? Like, I don't know if you saw any of those videos or those images And you have people who do like put up those billboards that are just kind of really aggressively kind of just like kind of heretical, where it'll literally be like, and then God sent us his only son, Trump. Like I've seen ones that said that and I'm like, dude, what? Like, what is this? I think if anything, all of that can be really extrapolated to is that there are sects of people who are so fanatical about Trump that because that base exists, it makes it easier to go, now look, he's the Antichrist. But really, we're looking at that through the lens of what his fanatics are doing, and less so that he's actually sitting here being like, and I am God, and he's like, he's not really doing that much. Now he does have that one moment where he was like, I'm the chosen one, but that's hilarious. And like, he doesn't kind of repeat consistently and be redundant with that rhetoric. So I do agree that I think it's a tired argument. But again, it does speak a little bit though to the fact that there is a underlying base of people who are like extremely fanatical about him, regardless of morals or values. And I think specifically somebody like that is cat turd. And that's why you get like very, very kind of cringe like reactions out of him, is because he is a fanatic and his only like morality is like whatever Trump says is good. And if that's your morality, it's like, I'm sorry, like I like Trump too, but like that's not the morality. Like I follow Jesus Christ. Like, it's like there's a big difference there. It's not to say like, oh, like there's a huge, like, no. It's just like understand like where you should be drawing your morality and morality lines from and where you shouldn't be. But to go on, I do agree, make fat shaming great again. The fact that fat shaming like just disappeared, it like kind of became non-existent, it's very, very sad, and it's had drastic consequences on our society, especially fat women. There's just way too many of them. And then Sanders says, they point out the stupid on both sides. They call out the Israelis committing war crimes. Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. Yes, and that's another reason why he's piqued my interest, or I guess the Hodge twins, is because anybody who is willing to talk about what is the GOP's and the left's golden cow, which is Israel, and acting as if, and they are literally infallible, they can do no wrong. That is the people who I want to go listen to, is because like, dude, like some of this stuff is entirely indefensible. Some of the stuff, particularly regarding the rape crimes going on, entirely reprehensible. I mean, I remember when I covered that on, I think it was a couple of shows ago, I had somebody who came into the chat room who was wanting to tell me that there's actually a difference between a Nakba and other types of criminals. It's just dehumanizing kind of rhetoric. It's so toxic, and it has like such strong ecclesiastical foundations to the three major Abrahamic religions, which is you get like Judaism, obviously, Islam, and then Christianity. And then from there, though, that's why these people are so convicted in these positions to want to literally kill people for their beliefs. But that's because like it's the convictions of the highest order, which is their actual faith in externality and posterity for where they go to after they die and what their purpose in life is for while they're here. So that explains a bit more of why they go to such hard extremes. What is up, world? Glad to have you in here. It seems like with these numbers, these metrics, it looks like it's one of the best streams I've done so far, at least here recently. I must have behaved or did all the rules. I wonder if it's because it's negatively at Trump. It's like YouTube's like, yeah, dude, like support this guy, dude. I hate YouTube sometimes. But I 100% echo your sentiment on the Twins Pod, exactly in that department. Now I will go to something that I tweeted. I rarely actually go to stuff that I tweet, but I'll put it on screen here. This is exactly what I thought, especially shortly after seeing the image of the Truth Social post that was attacking Joe Rogan and all of just the, I guess, the nonsense surrounding that. But this is what I said. I said, so not only is the Trump campaign grinding to an absolute halt, it's fumbled all momentum from the assassination attempts. Something that I think is understated like hell is the fact that we literally went from like, he can't lose, to like, we're fighting each other like embarrassingly so cringy on the timeline, because we do have this kind of deep-rooted fear now that the election has a chance to be taken, stolen, or flat out lost. And I said the RNC was a disaster, that it was rife with tokenism, degeneracy, and to top it off, a lackluster VP pick. I think the only day that I actually didn't mind it too much was the actual last day, and that ended up being the one that I covered with World, who's actually in the chat here. And I said, could have been Vivek Ramaswamy. That would have been a pick that would have galvanized the base. It would have covered a lot more bases than what JD Vance did. But that's besides the point. Said top of the chain pundits giving the worst possible comebacks between we're not weird, you're weird. I've seen that about 100 times, and I'm glad Matt Walsh has now picked this up too. It's been something that Nick Fuentes has been getting smeared for. And then making the horse cum memes from an unverified story about Tim Walz when there's like 110 places that you could attack him from that aren't that aren't fake news type stuff. And then moving closer to where we're at now, the Kyle Rittenhouse blowback. Many of the same pundits showed true MAGA occultism. And I said, I understand his decision was poor and at the behest of Never Trumpers, but the emotional reactions were more damaging. And then the Joe Rogan thing, which he gives this light-hearted nod to RFK, and then it spurs even more of the same cringe and unhinged emotional blowback from the likes of Cat Turd. And then you have the infighting between the bait endorsement from Tim Cass and RFK. And then I put, you are here. Nick Fuentes is completely right. If major moves aren't made soon, it's going to be a slow burn to another stolen election. My 2 cents. And I say this as somebody who is wanting Donald Trump to win. I'm not saying this because it's like, well, see, I told you. Like, I'm saying it because it's like, we have to right the ship. Like, we must. Like, I do, I'm getting ready to bring in, I'm recently married, getting ready to bring in a girl into this world. I have everything and their futures riding on the fact that Kamala, the dictator, and the deep state do not steal the election one more time. So it goes back to, we need to get closer to too big to rig, right? Like, get back on track with that, right? But not in the form of big tent conservatism. Get back on that track by, for an example here, the mass deportations. Haven't heard a lick or an ounce about mass deportations since months ago. But if you really wanted to rally your base, and that's something that people on both sides of the aisle agree, there are plenty of people who are left wing, who are in the blackest of black communities, who hate what's going on with immigration, and that is something that would definitely unify and get people to vote for Trump. Especially when you look at the way the New York what's it called? The New York the way the I can't think what it's called, but we had all those videos coming out with the New Yorkers who were publicly confronting cops who are moving into these hotels, all of these migrants being housed. And the New Yorkers were like, dude, we're struggling out here. We know that you're giving these people free phones. We know they're getting $3,000 when they cross. We know you're giving them these prepaid Visa cards. They're like, we're out here dying, dude. But they back away. He's backed away from this. He's backed away from almost all of his energy that brought him to be the figure that he is. And this is what we get, right? We get this super, super weak, kind of paper-handed, campaign where we're at now. And now we're battling on things such as Chrissy LaVita and Susan Wiles, who are running the campaign into the ground, essentially with their disavowalment of Project 2025. And so all of these things just kind of culminate into, it ain't looking good, man. And Marina P says, Kamala is a dictator, LOL. Sandor Clegane, did you vote for Kamala as your Democratic nominee, Marina? I have an idea, maybe, possibly, probably. Yes, and in fact, if it doesn't even matter, you don't really need a dictator for a country that's already ruled by bureaucrats. We're ruled by a council of dictators, if you will, a council of tyranny. The shadow campaign behind everything, the one that they write in the Times magazine that they fortified the election with, the shadow campaign to rule them all. At this point, if you think there's not some kind of tyranny going on, it's I think you might have, a bit stronger mental illness than someone who's actually diagnosed trans. But to make more points of this, right, is that you have essentially the Groyper War starting, right? So you have the Groyper War, I can't even say that word, starting because they are attacking on all of these fronts, wanting to push the Trump campaign back into the direction they think it should be in. So this is from Chief Trumpster, and I'll pull this on screen here. From Chief Trumpster right here, fire La Savita, fire Wiles, Groyper War 2, and America First. Now, this was, I guess, the top 4 trending topics on Truth Social I believe from yesterday, with this be just a couple hours ago. Now, this is them showing how much influence they have. I guess I'm not sure really how to quantify it. I do know they do have definite influence for sure, but obviously you can see they're already making moves on Truth Social, taking over Trump's platform in an attempt to push for the values that they think are the ones that will right the ship, not because they want things to burn down or break down, but because they want the Trump campaign to win, and win justly, win righteously, on all the same values that got him to be the avatar that people put their aspirations into, that birthed this man from 2015 and onward. Now, obviously, there's been some hiccups between here and now, but that rise to power, essentially, or rise to fame and polarity that we did see in his first term, that's what we need to go back to the well for, to continue this. He says, not even close. I'm glad. Not even close. I'm going to go to this because I have a couple here, because we have Groyper War initiation and then an update on the plans of the Groyper War. Now, I'm going here because I find Nick Fuentes to be a very specifically influential individual regarding the election, particularly on two fronts. One, I think he garners a huge amount of the masculine right wing, particularly for the youth. I would say definitely from any ages, anywhere from, like, because he has probably a younger audience, I will say that, but I don't know the exact numbers, so don't let me lie on him. Probably 14 to 16-year-olds, all the way up to like 24 to 6-year-olds. He probably dominates in that region, particularly because of the way, the brand of kind of person he is, the charismatic energy he has, and especially seeing the sentiment that would have been built up with the anti-white rhetoric and with the anti-Christian rhetoric, and just let alone not just rhetoric, but the actual actions that have been happening for the last 8 to 10 years. And then that audience then being this up and coming younger generation of white men and younger men, I think is the main people he speaks to, which, if anything, would be obviously what is driving the youth vote for the Trump campaign. So if he's speaking to them and he is seen as like the charismatic spot leader for that group, then I think it bears at least some responsibility and accountability to, one, recognize that he does have it, and two, at least monitor it when he's telling you he's going to be mobilizing it in some kind of direction. So we'll go here. This is from Ray, and I'll put it on screen here now. This is from Ray, and it is, I am declaring a new Groyper War against the Trump campaign. And it's only 2.5 minutes long, but we'll let him explain it himself and the reasoning for so. And we'll follow it up with a couple more clips as well. But again, any issues with the sound in chat, please let me know. I'll adjust accordingly.
I am declaring a new Groyper War against the Trump campaign until we can figure out what the hell is going on. I'm declaring a new Groyper War. You have alienated us. You have ignored us. You don't listen to our concerns. We have been left behind. The Trump movement and the GOP have moved on without us. It serves Israel and corporations and immigrants, but it doesn't serve Native Americans. What about Native Americans? What about Americans? What about young white men and others too? But what about us? Charlie Kirk is to the right of Trump on immigration. That's unacceptable. So I think it's time for another Groyper War. We're bigger, better, stronger than ever. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Rumble. This is a big live stream every night. We have allies. So I think it's time to up the ante a little bit. Joker 2 is premiering in October. Joker 2, 5-year anniversary. The show is back. We're opening the chest. I think it's time for Groyper War 2. And this time, we're going all out. Justice once. And we will bring the energy. It's just a question of whether they want to get on board or get out of the way. That's the question. But we will bring, the Groypers will bring the energy. Memes, edits, replies, trolls. Get with us or get the fuck out of the way. Groyper War 2 coming soon. I declare a Groyper war. I'm done. I'm done playing around.
You have to admit, dude, this guy has got charisma, dude. And this is what happens when he was forced into a box, essentially excluded after being found as a diamond in the rough by the Daily Wire, picking up when he was like, what, 16 or 17 years old, signing him on, and then his career essentially being molded in the fabric of which he was like, why is the Daily Wire not allowing me to post the stuff about Israel? Why does the Daily Wire have these puff pieces about Israel? Thus thrusting him into the caricature in which people say he is, and then he's obviously playing on this caricature as well. It's a phenomenal thing, and I think he's honestly one of the smartest and most brilliant people around. Well, I don't agree with 100% of his takes either. I think the sentiment that he is a future president nominee, I think, should not be taken lightly.
I'm done sitting on the sidelines and complaining. Are you happy? I'm done sitting around and being blamed and accused, complaining about how it's not going well. I'm going to use my leverage. I'm going to do something about it. We have power. We have Groyper power. And this is about to become the Groyper election.
It's just funny because there's the mannerisms that he exhibits are just hilarious. And like people will always kind of capture his screenshots of him like doing kind of like weird things with his hands and be like, what kind of gay thing is Nick Fuentes going to do today? And, people have the posted one where he's like crossing his legs or he's sitting in an odd position. But the Groyper War already started. Let me break that to you, especially when we see what was going on with Truth Social. I've already been seeing a lot of mobilization on Groypers on X as well too, particularly because I think X kind of has pinned my account into the algorithm as also being a Groyper aligned account, which I don't hate, not at all. So I see a lot more of like those kind of random posts that are from people I don't follow, particularly from that side of the dissident right. But I think we need it, especially because I do genuinely fear what's going to come with the election this November, particularly regarding some of this data I'm about to show you as well, coming from the predictit market that gives me a lot more scare than I think even the Polymarket data as well. Now, again, if you remember in 2016, how many times did we get shown polls that was Hillary Clinton was leading by 49% to Trump's 37%, only for, the CNN projections on the day of to take all the way from 98% chance for Hillary all the way around to Trump winning. So I think there is a bit of an argument there to say, hey, all of this polling data could be complete bunk. But that goes back to what I said earlier with I said, let me say a truth, which is we are in the middle of fifth generational warfare. Information used to obfuscate, information used to misappropriate, and the best lies truly are the ones that have a little bit of truth in them, and they become a lot harder to kind of debunk. This comes, and I think it's more so like an anti-truth, really. It's something that is not even just a lie, but it's phrased or worded rather in a way that is actually the complete opposite of what's been going on. So, all of these kind of devices lead into this kind of chaotic nature where it's hard to trust anything, really. But I think you still have to put some level of weight into the polling, having some level of reflection, but not the actual polling, not the pollers, right? That's something I think that we got to avoid, and too much bias exists in that. More specifically, I think it's the predictit market. Now, I'll show you this here, and I'll actually put it on screen. Let me actually go just jump forward here, okay? This is the real clear polling data. Let's see, just lit my face up, but let me go here. This is the 2024 RCP Electoral College map. Now, this is where it sits currently with all of these electoral votes being between the toss-up states. Now, the toss-up states being, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia. But if you go with the no toss-ups, where they're currently leading from rear clear polling, Trump wins. And that's with all of these leanings added in there. Now, Virginia is one that's been kind of eye-opening too, but Pennsylvania would be really solid to get. Pennsylvania being, I think, the biggest of all of those. If we go back to the actual electoral map, I think Virginia is at 13 electoral votes with Pennsylvania at 19. So Pennsylvania being one of the major ones that we actually truly need to make sure that we win, which is why it was a bit shocking when Kamala Harris went away from her VP pick of Tim Walz, or I guess went with Tim Walz away from Shapiro, because I think most people were waiting for it to be Shapiro to ensure she would win Pennsylvania, given the fact that the assassination attempt happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, obviously implying that because of what occurred then, that people would vote for Trump just based on the tragedy or the tragic nature of the event, which would be the assassination attempt. But let me show you something a little bit more scarier that doesn't come from the Real Clear polling. This is actually the predicted market. The predicted market is something I've been putting a lot more of weight into. And let me actually make my screen a lot bigger so you can see this. So this is the 2024, the most predicted, right? This is what everybody's been falling in love with. Now you can see here at the bottom though, 33.5 million shares have been traded. Now, I don't think that means specifically that 33.5 million people have bet on the market, but I think that means just 33.5 million transactions have been made, which is quite a bit, right? So that's about 10% of the population. Now, some people could be doing it twice. So maybe it's only indicative of about, 5% of the population. Either way, forgive me, this is polling data that is not done with normal terms. This is, in fact, the wisdom of the crowd formatting. This is showing Kamala Harris at a 59% to Donald Trump's 44 cents. Man, forgive me, I can't talk. I need to get a drink of water or something. But even more so with this, so this is even a bit slightly larger lead, larger margin of victory for Kamala than what the Polymarket was showing. But let me go to this one so you can see this, and I'll actually make it a lot bigger too, because you probably can't see that very well. Well, I thought I was going to. Oh yeah, I just click next on this. So the Electoral College margin in 2024. The Dems by 65 to 104 electoral votes is currently winning that market prediction as well. So not only in the market of, obviously they would be aligned if people in the macro thought that she was going to win, but they're not even thinking that's going to be a close victory. It's a blowout victory is what's leading in this margin, which I think even shows even a bit more of an indicator that people's sentiment, while maybe not from all voters, but at least people's sentiment in the macro and the national level, is that Kamala has all of the hype and momentum and is going to win. And I think that is reflective upon why we're seeing, once again, let me get rid of this, all of the kind of very, very emotional and unhinged reactions regarding the Kyle Rittenhouse situation when he came out and said he wanted to vote in Ron Paul because he thought Trump wasn't going to be good enough on 2A. And it's the same reason why I think as well, Cat Turd has this insane reaction with what going on with the Joe Rogan slight endorsement of RFK, which Joe Rogan even came out and said he wasn't even endorsing RFK. He was just kind of voicing that he thinks that he liked RFK the best as a candidate, and it wasn't an actual professional endorsement. And then obviously you have, unfortunately I should say, Trump attacking Joe Rogan, which I thought was the worst and most cringe thing of the whole part. Now I'll put it on screen here because this is a screenshot from The Art of Purpose, and he says this is cringe. Donald Trump said it will be interesting to see how loudly Joe Rogan gets booed the next time he enters the UFC ring. I don't know about you, but I do not believe that Joe Rogan will get booed in any amount at all. I think if the UFC had a loyalty at its base level, it would probably be a lot more loyal to Joe Rogan and in his entourage than it would be for the Trump and his Trump campaign. Now, that is just an entirely speculation, but that is my opinion. It's overall, let me just say this one more time, it is cringe. And it speaks to the fact that there are people in his ear just saying, yeah, Trump, truth that, tweet that, say that'll, that's what we need to do. And it was really, dude, going to war with the largest podcaster, on the internet currently, the biggest show probably, and knowing that his entire audience is essentially centrist, if not right-leaning, and then a smaller faction being left-leaning, and who's done a lot of good and justice for the movement and for, let's not even just say the MAGA movement. Joe Rogan's done a lot of justice just for truth in of itself, for objective reality. and that's who you want to go to war with because he had a slight difference in opinion and he didn't even give a full endorsement, it just seems egregious. Now, I will break it down a bit more, but I wanted to go to what the quartering was going to say regarding MAGA influencers and their reactions to what was going on, because this is the tip of the spear, right? This is the Donald Trump. Now, there's obviously been a lot more headstrong reactions regarding influencers who are going to go a lot further than what Trump said here. So we'll go ahead and give you a take from the quartering and what he said to MAGA influencers, which is essentially to chill out. We'll go ahead and play this. And again, any issues with this, please let me know. I will adjust accordingly.
Real quick on all this dumb infighting and melting down. First it was Kyle Rittenhouse. Now it's Joe Rogan. Look, Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016 and Trump won easily. Has everybody who is one of these mega influencers completely forgot about 2016 and how every poll had Hillary ahead until the very end? Has everybody forgot how Cory Bush had 1 million Twitter followers and got beat by a relative nobody with 10,000 Twitter followers? Twitter is not real life. It's getting really cringe seeing so many of these quote unquote mega influencers melt down and react emotionally to what is obviously a Kamala psyop. These images that get out that many people are saying are AI, the fact that she had a concert in a wildly popular band's hometown, and it was a free concert of Bon Iver in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, their hometown. Everyone's like, oh my God, the Kamala phenomenon is real. Trump needs to fire his campaign manager. Oh my God. Holy crap. I'm getting real tired, a lot of these mega influencers that are suddenly now doom pilling, because the point of the Kamala psyop is exactly this, and you're falling for it. Okay, I'm not going to call anyone out by name because, you know, it's not helpful. But the fact is, all these huge crowds and all these polls that are coming out, they have one goal, and that's to make you panic and make you demoralized.
So he is clearly adamant that the entirety of this matrix that's going on, that's showing all of the hype for Kamala, the polling for Kamala, I mean, and we're not even talking about like the concert sizes and the AI images that the campaign might be using. I can't go that far because I can't adamantly say or believe that it's entirely all flawed. Now, I will say, I think 100% chance they're going to rig and they are going to cheat, and they're already currently doing so. I'm not saying that there isn't a current attempt to psyop. I just think to say that it's all the psyop is, I think, it's kind of abdicating the responsibility of that. There is some polling data. I mean, you're kind of honestly saying all polling data is flawed. And then at that point, it's like, well, then what's the point of even having the polling data? Then stop using it, right? But it seems odd to me that we'll then look at polling data that shows favorability towards Trump and we go, oh, see, look. And then it's favorable towards Kamala and you go, oh, no, everything's a psyop. Like, don't fall for it. It's like, you can't have it both ways. Like, there's got to be some credibility to the polling. But I do understand it's been entirely flawed for the last about 12 years, if not even longer than that, particularly regarding how much they hype and how poorly they actually do the metrics for polling.
Make you give up, and you guys are falling for it. It's so obvious. How can you not see this? Stop tweeting about how, oh my God, the polls, oh, Trump's got to make a major change. No, he doesn't. Kamala's going to get on that debate stage. Kamala's going to have to answer questions eventually. Kamala's going to have to do the town hall, and everyone's going to remember how unlikable and how much of a crotch she is, okay? So stop being babies and get out there and harvest a ballot.
And where I will disagree with them too is that I don't think that even with very, very poor debate performance, like we saw with Joe Biden's was so egregiously bad in the aspect of they had done for 2 years straight, essentially, or probably 3 years straight for this point, ever since his presidency, defending the fact that he has the mental acuity to be the president for 4 more years, let alone be alive in 4 years. With Kamala, it's different. Kamala is specific in the fact that she is an identity candidate. She is a DEI hire. She is being voted for because she is a woman, right? Now, the quartering differs from me too, because the quartering says, no, there's no major changes that need to be made, but he's also somebody who is like really kind of more of a libertarian liberal, and he's not really truly right wing. It's same thing with like people like Tim Pool, right? Like they're a lot more like libertarian leaning, so they don't see the need for major changes to be made because they're not pushing for the actual conservative right wing, which would be a lot more of Christian ethics, a lot more of the national abortion ban, right? The lot more of the hardwired deport everyone, no more illegal immigration and no more legal immigration. Like, we have people on the right wing that are saying like we need to put a moratorium on even legal immigration and prevent it for maybe even 20 years. Like, don't let people in. Like, we need to fix this. So to see him have this stance, I'm not shocked by that stance, but I think he's right in the fact that the debate is probably going to be poor in Kamala's favor, particularly for the fact that she's so easy to attack given her record and all the things that have allowed her to be installed to where she's at right now. But again, she's being voted for largely by women and largely by Black identitarians. And I don't think really when you look at it that way, that it would really need a very, very tragic debate performance to get in the identitarians to not vote for her. And it sucks because this also speaks back to like, repeal the 19th and all that. And that's a side point there. But I think, even the people watching right now can look at an average Taylor Swift concert of girls and the way they act and you cringe at that, right? But those are the same people who see these Kamala instances that you and I would find cringe, and they go, they don't find it cringe at all. They in fact are like, oh, okay, like, yeah, like she acts like I act, the laughing, the cackling. They don't really see much of an issue with it or find it to be as cringe or as bad as we do. And that's not an absolute statement on women, but it is a statement on the fact that I have seen many and many, many, many large viral posts that speak to this attribute, which is they are going to vote for her because she's a Black woman. Doesn't even matter that she doesn't have policy plans on her platform. Doesn't matter. The people who are in the left wing, the leftists, the leftoids, they're not voting because she's going to have like these great laid out policy measures. They're voting for her because she's a Black woman. And so I'm not sure how much of a poor debate performance can take away from that. But the quartering is right on the fact that we were faced with these same kind of instances in 2016, which was the polling data was showing huge favorability to Hillary Clinton. And look how that turned out. So there's truth, I think, on both sides of what he was saying there. Now, to go to the actual troll and stuff from RFK, which I kind of already have covered, I guess, up to this point, but I'll go here one more time. Because this is the troll from Tim Pool, which was this bait tweet here, and it sucked because it did bait RFK. So we'll go here first. I think, he didn't delete it. Okay. So Tim Pool put out this tweet, okay, I'm voting for RFK Jr. now, for the specific reason of he was being bombasted by many, 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 many largely MAGA accounts that were particularly aiming at him, saying like, see, like this is why we don't like milquetoast fence sitters, like coming out with just like these insane things because he wasn't marching in lockstep, like how we always accuse the left of with the MAGA movement. And the unfortunate aspect is RFK saw this and thought it was real. And he says, I'm so grateful to you, Tim, for your confidence in me, but most of all for your steadfast defense of the Constitution and relentless love for our country. Now that made me feel bad too, because I obviously know the style of Tim Pool's tweets. And so when I saw this interaction, I was like, oh man, like it just made me feel bad, right? Like it's just like RFK thinking he got an endorsement from a large podcaster, but really it was the podcaster playing around on Twitter. So this is when you get Tim Pool says, you're a good dude, brother. I was trolling the haters, but in all honesty, I do intend to vote for Trump. I hope to see you in the end, be a part of his administration and help fight against environmental toxins in big pharma. And even Tim Pool spoke to this on his actual podcast, I believe last night as well. It was a hard read. Not like it was cringe, but it's like kind of like a secondhand embarrassment type thing. Even like a really bad frog in my throat right now. And so let's see. I mean, this is the majority of what we've got for the Trump campaign and its flailing aspects. I do have a couple more other stories. If anybody's in the chat is interested in going further discussion with what's going on with the Trump campaign, let me know. Put some questions in the chat, or anything you might think that you disagree with me with. We can talk a bit further about that. Let me know. Otherwise, I think I'm going to spend these last like 30 minutes. I'm going to cover some more of what was going on regarding the where was it at? Oh no, that's why I wanted to do Matt Walsh's take. We'll end on Matt Walsh's take on what was going on with the Trump campaign and the flailing that's going on. Because I do think that there needs to be some major changes done. I will disagree on the quartering on that aspect. Particularly because this is a campaign that has allowed its campaign staffers and himself to disavow Project 2025, which for someone like Tim Pool, who we know is a milquetoast fence sitter, libertarian, he said that he thought Project 2025 didn't go far enough. And so if you have a libertarian saying that, but it's being disavowed by the leader of the right-wing party, something doesn't add up there, right? But again, it's all in line with this trend, which is turning down all of what used to be the 2016 energy to fall into big tent conservatism, to defer to moderates, and to defer to more left-leaning people at the expense of the values your base wants to bring back to America. And let me say this too, for anybody who's still here viewing right now, World actually reminded me, I have like free gift memberships I can give out for my channel. I need to actually like look at what I can do to help like kind of maximize that out. I think it allows like extra emojis and things that I can play with. So with that being said, I'll save that towards the end and I'll go to the actual live stream, pull that up and see if I can't give out some gift memberships to people who are in the audience right now. In fact, I can probably gift one out to everybody there. Don't hold me to that though, because I'm not sure how many I have. So we're going to cover the Trump and Elon interview later tonight on Jar Opener, so I'll save that. I will cover this because this I don't think we're going to touch much on, but I think it's very important. So for those who are unaware, obviously with the UK riots that have been going on, it's gotten a step more egregious, if you will. The Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley now threatening to extradite and imprison American citizens over online posts. Now we do have a video we can actually watch with him saying this particularly. It's from Andrew Torba. So we'll go here. Let me go ahead and put it on screen. It's from Andrew Torba, the founder of Gab. And he says, I repeat again, Gab will not hand one single set of user profile data to the UK government. Get bent. And good, because I'm glad he said that. But we'll go ahead and listen to this man say it himself. Although I will say, once again, it tracks that the most like feminine, non-binary looking individual is donning the admiralship or one of the higher offices of that. Again, another parallel to the US as well. We have the most gay and feminine looking generals. But again, any issues with sound, please let me know.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
Now you probably caught it in there too. That slight mention of Elon Musk. Now forgive me, I did want to go to Matt Walsh's take on the Trump campaign. I'll go there in just after in a little bit. I think the particular thing that needs to be taken out of this is just the audacity to sit there and act as if you're going to come over to America and extradite people to Great Britain over posting something online. Like, yeah, I echo what Torba said. You can absolutely get bent.
We will throw the full
like come and take it. I saw a funny post of George Washington RKOing a British like soldier or British regular. It's one of the best posts I ever saw. It was aimed at one of these not end wokeness, but one of these actual like UK public accounts that exist there. Now, it comes with an aim at Elon Musk, who's been targeted by the British government for stirring up hatred. This is a trend line that we've seen continuing over and over and over again, particularly because of the early developments that happened in the riots. You had people like Elon and really Carl Benjamin. Those are two people I followed that I saw it coming from, that were like spot on over and over and over, nailing this, being like, hey, like this is egregious, this is aggressive, not here in America. And then now you get Elon Musk, who's being now thrown into this matrix like he's not safe, right? They're kind of like eyeing this up, or he's like building up to this point that they're going to get Elon extradited out of America, right? Like that's kind of the implication they're kind of building it up, is if Elon doesn't tone it down. And it says there's a video of a British guy getting arrested at home because of a Facebook post. Should play it. I actually think I might have that one. I think I have two actually of the British people that are getting arrested for their posts online. So they're not only threatening the extradition, but with the attachment of being a terrorist. So not only is it the extradition coming from like committing just a hate crime, they're also attaching it to be like, you'll also be designated with a terrorist charge for posting the material online. So it's complete tyranny, right? So you had a judge that warned that you will even be refused bail if you only watch the riots from the sidelines. I'm not even joking you. They've already actually denied bail and remanded into custody multiple people who were simply just at the riots, who didn't even participate, who were literally standing on the sidewalk watching, like from the periphery. Like there's weird arguments being put out from the judges there, just to show you how insane and how confident and how like obvious they are being about it, which I think is a little bit different from what we saw in J6. I'll get to that though. So they're warning that anybody present at a riot will be remanded in custody, even if they were only a curious observer. And so I said, it really makes you think, where is this energy for the immigration, but it seems to be there only for anti-white? Same thing with the Keir Starmer, I think that's how you say his name, the prime minister. The vitriol that was in that speech, like the far-right thuggery. It's like, bro, you didn't, like, where was the energy for the last 20 years when like immigrants were having all these high-profile killings and rapings and grooming gangs and gang raping? Like, not a single ounce of it was there. But now all of a sudden I see it like an 18 million viewed post because you're sitting there talking shit to white people. It's like, yeah, okay, I get tracks. Oh, once again, like these things, these parallels once again. But again, like it's a prideful thing to be anti-white apparently, but it's on these same trend lines. But again, this district judge, Francis Rafferty, has already denied 2 bail applications for these exact reasons, for them simply being around the riots, not even participating in them. Periphery of the scene is what it's being designated as. One defendant admitted to being on the edge of the scene for the reason of wanting to have a look, prompting the judge to say he doesn't have to throw a petrol bomb or a brick to be involved in disorder if he's present at disorder. So simply by being present, you're being disorderly, is the argument they're making. And on top of this, I do have this specific story of Tyler K., who went to prison and lost his house for copying a post on X. And this is from Mariona Fall. Now, I'm not sure if this is what you were talking about, Sandor, but I think it's in the same exact light. So Tyler K. went to prison and lost his house for copying a post on X. So he was sentenced to 38 months in prison for copying a post made on X by Lucy Conley. And Lucy Conley is also going to prison, is currently being sentenced, I believe, right now for her online post in the same exact light. The post read, "Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the effing hotels full of the bastards for all I care. If that makes me a racist, so be it." It says that Lucy has been arrested for the post and Tyler was trying to prove that he wouldn't be arrested. He made this clear in a reply to his post, stating, "My point is more. It's one rule for some and another rule for others." So this is him here. Yeah. I'll let the chat say what they need to, because yeah. But these are the picture here, right? This is him. He essentially copied that exact post with all of these hashtags, and he's responding into a thread saying his point was to show there's 2-tier policing. Well, clearly that didn't work out for him because he did get arrested. Showing how far they're willing to take this. They're taking no jokes in it at all, allowing simply no exceptions. Even copying another post is enough to guarantee or warrant the same exact charges. The unfortunate thing is apparently he lost his council house with this. Now, again, forgive me because I'm just not that familiar with the ongoings of what occurs in Great Britain and the UK. But apparently this was grounds for him to lose his home. So then they sent him to prison for 3 years and 2 months for this. So 3 years and 2 months for reposting, essentially, but in your own words, a hateful speech post. Now gets you a terrorist charge, disorderly conduct, and then a father of 3 now going to prison for this. It is egregious. And, you know, it's a very strong step up from what we saw after the fact on January 6th, right? Like, a lot of the rest that were done in, like, private, if you remember, we were learning about after the fact, like when they did that one thing in Alaska Airlines where they stopped a plane and they were doing things in the dead of night, very, very kind of like, secretly. They were doing things to not get the ire of the public, because if it was that they were just doing mass arrests for anybody like even halfway involved in J6 to the overt level of what happening in the UK, I think then you would have really kind of built the sentiment in the background of people being unwilling to cooperate. So these methods are a bit egregious, and the UK is doing things very publicly and very confidently. Now, obviously, because they don't have the Constitution, they don't have nearly the same amount of negative pro-rights that we have here in America. And the further arguments, you know, indicate that despite the UK having less protections, they're still abusing law and order to enact these policies and carry out these mass waves of arrests. So even though they're doing these things publicly, confidently, and they're arguing that they are well within the law to be able to do these things, there's now growing sentiment that in fact they're actually even abusing their own laws in a country that has even less rights than we do. And I thought that was even more egregious, right? And so to take you here, this is again from Mario to Fall. And the headline to this says, is the UK abusing laws to jail people for social posts? And so the two laws that are very specific here is the Public Order Act of 1986, which determines what is just or lawful in the public sphere. And then the Communications Act is what's used to regulate for the digital and posting online. Now, if you look at the Public Order Act 1986, this was introduced to manage public disturbances during the race riots of the 1980s. The law was historically used to prevent physical gatherings from turning violent. But they're saying recently, regarding these protests, its applications... Man, I cannot talk, I'm losing my voice. Its application is expanded to target online activity, raising concerns that the law is now being used more broadly and aggressively than originally intended. And Kevdo, you are 100% right. Ministry of Truth. They want the truth. Dude, I'm choking over here. Forgive me. I'm getting smoked out. CIA must have found out where I live, dude. I can't breathe. I got some stuff in the air. But again, extrapolating this law to then broadly be enforced online, which is not what its original purpose was. And the Communications Act in 2003 is what regulates the electronic communications, which criminalizes messages deemed grossly offensive or threatening. And I gotta be honest, he left the best part out. This Communications Act even goes so far that you can be charged if you cause someone needless anxiety. It's literally one of the things that fits the criteria to be an illegal post. So if you post something that makes somebody anxious, like, you know, that can see your post, you've just committed a crime. And if you're asking me, like, that is ridiculous, right? Yeah, nanoparticles, maybe. I'm telling you what, it got very hard to breathe in the last like 20 minutes. I'm hoping there's not a fire in the building and I'm not paying attention. Either way, the show must go on. No, but hopefully not. But it just shows that even in a country that has less rights and even more stringent laws, is still abusing those ones, right? So if you were to stretch this in the US, it's like, well, they would clearly be out of bounds with the way that they were kind of interpreting their laws. But to even see that there's now cries that they're abusing the already harsher totalitarian laws that exist there is like, man, they are doing everything in their power to quell this. And I think most notably, it speaks to the fact of when I think it was on my last show, maybe 2 shows ago, when the Fuentes camp was like, in Alex Jones too, was saying, hey, like, this is a trap. You know, Admiral Akbar, like, it's a trap. And they're going to use it as an excuse for the mass wave of arrest to then you get all of the most active and most willing and most convicted supporters who are the most at the ready to do something are now all of a sudden taken off the streets in a mass wave. And it's super unfortunate and it's super damaging to the party that needs the support. Now, you said, I think someone in Britain threatened us in the UA for our tweets. Yeah. Pack it up. We had a good run with the asteroid come in Britain. That's like an active war. Um, I, you know what? I gotta be honest. I think if Kamala Harris was elected, they would allow extraditions, and you would see American citizens then getting picked up and taken to Britain to stand trial for Britain law for something that you shouldn't have to pay any ounce of credibility or heritage to at all. Like, and again, you know, like we fought a war against these MFers, dude. like we don't, like we won, dude. Like you have no say over the people here in these states, right? Like if anything, like that should be like the sentiment or the sentiment that we go with. But I do fear very heavily that if Kamala gets into office, that she will stand in nobody's way when they do come to issue like large extraditions, particularly less so about the individual person, right? So like I might want to think like, oh, I'm very impactful, dude. Like I can do this. Like somebody like Elon Musk, that would be where I would imagine where Kamala's like, yeah, no, yep, Elon, you did break these laws in Great Britain. Yeah, I'm going to have to sign this deal. You're going to have to go, man. You know, I can imagine her being very willing to open that door and be like, hey, like Elon does need to serve trial for this. Because obviously it would be beneficial for her and the deep state to then remove the man who is spearheading the movement for free speech and full transparency here in the United States. In fact, the last bastion. Had we not gotten Elon's purchase of Twitter for $44 billion, we quite literally probably wouldn't even be experiencing this much success, or we wouldn't even be probably even awaiting a Trump victory in November, because we would have been beaten over the head so badly in the last 3 to 4 years with misinformation, the censorship, the big tech oligarchs, that it would have been a lost cause. We can call them British cigarettes. Yeah, I mean, that's how they're acting, as a bunch of faggots. And I will be honest about that. And that was like the first thing I noticed about the video we just watched is like why is like the top guys in uniform, whether it's the US or in the UK, like, dude, like, these guys like he looks like a dude who is into furries. like you just like, you look weird. You don't look like you're a commander in chief. You look like the guy in the cafeteria room that keeps making weird motions with his strawberry milk. It's like, bro, dude, can you stop? Can you stop? You're bothering me. But I mean, that really rounds out, I guess, the majority of the hot end news today. The only other smaller thing that I talked about at the top of the hour was the Joe Biden medical emergency that was confirmed. I can actually, let me see if I can just make this bigger. Let me just drag this on screen. So I actually took a screenshot earlier. Let me put this on screen here now. I took a screenshot from the article, I think it was from New York Post. And this is what it is. For everyone on the radio right now, POTUS is 421. He's being seen, so we're just kind of waiting to see how this is shaping out. So for everybody's knowledge, he's 421 right now. We're just trying to figure out what's going on, and we're going to go from there. And it's a portion of the transcript that was released with this 43-minute clip that was gained or granted access by a FOIA request for the specific reason to understand a bit more of what actually happened regarding that instance where the Air Force Two, I think it was Air Force Two, or it might have been Air Force One, but where it was like, you know, we had all those reports where people were like, yeah, it moved so fast, it was like it was shaking, like it changed directions. And now we do have confirmation from the security detail that it was a code 421, which is the emergency service vehicle posturing for a sick or injured person, which essentially just dictates to those in the security detail how they need to align their cars and how to park them and which intersections should be shut down because of the level of I guess, danger or precaution they would want to have regarding the president suffering from such an instance, whether it was him being entirely incapacitated or whether he was suffering from a stroke or whether it was some kind of, you know, flu-like symptoms where he was like, you know, having very difficulty recovering from. It could have been anything in that light. Oh man, I don't want to do that, but let me get off of that though. Let me go back actually to the outline because make sure, oh yeah, I want to go to Matt Walsh's take. We'll kind of end this out, go back to the Trump campaign, because this is the take from Matt Walsh here regarding the way that the MAGA crew and pundits have been attacking things. No, Kev Dog saying, Kev Doge, I think Joe Biden's been dead for a while. And that has very bizarre implications if that's true. I think it explains the surreal events that keep happening. It makes sense in my head. I think, I think you're onto something there too. And this is something that even, a journalist that I don't really enjoy much, but Shane Cashman, he's been saying this for quite some time where like, he just thinks that Biden's been dead for quite a while. I think there's a lot of evidence that kind of speaks to that too, especially when we, you get the 8-foot version Biden, then you get the normal version Biden, you get the ears with you get the ears, I forget what that's called. You get the ears that attach to the head, you get the ears that don't attach to the head. You get all these differences in eye shape and nose shape. And I think even for the average person, they can look at Joe Biden in 2015. The asymmetry in the way his face is like, it's more than old age. Like it's something a little bit beyond old age, but you could also probably explain that too with him getting veneers and getting Botox and plastic surgery. I guess like how much of that explains, the actual complete changing to the actual like structure of his face. And I think it's plausible. I think it's 100% plausible. The only thing I think that speaks against it is just like because of how many cameras that exist and how many eyes would be on him at all times. Like, I think if he were to pass, I think that would have been something that a whistleblower probably would have came forward for. But who's to say that they didn't get assassinated Hillary Clinton style, and they committed suicide with 10 stab wounds or something along those lines. So I think, it's on both sides. I think it's plausible, but I think you're right. Like, I think there is a huge argument to be made, which is like, maybe Joe Biden actually passed in like 2018 and we've been working with a body double wearing, fake masks, plastic surgery, 3D printed stuff to kind of keep the bus going, as you will. But I will take it to this one final take here from Matt Walsh as I close this out here. Joe Rogan is one of the most powerful cultural forces in America, and he is, at a minimum, very friendly to conservatives. He has repeatedly used his massive platform to amplify right-wing voices that would not be able to find that kind of audience anywhere else. He's a tremendous net good for the culture and for the conservative movement, even if he doesn't consider himself to be part of the movement. The right-wing accounts attacking him and disowning him today for saying nice things about RFK are acting foolishly at best, and I think that's pretty accurate there. I was going to say unhinged because it wasn't even really like, kind of nuanced takes. A lot of these takes that were coming in were just straight up like, how dare you? Like, just like, are you a woman, dude? You don't turn on a guy who has been, is, and could continue to be a huge asset to you and your movement just because he didn't endorse Trump. That is strategically insane, pretty stupid, petty, stupid, overly emotional, shooting yourself in the foot just to prove a point. There's way too much of this kind of shit among certain right-wing influencers at the moment. These specific people have no idea how to build and maintain an actual movement. No idea who the real power players are. No idea how to wield influence. They just tweet Republican boomer bait all day long. I've never heard that word before, but it's pretty accurate. I need to start using that, boomer bait. All day long, nonstop, and then turn and try unsuccessfully most of the time to destroy anyone who actually moves the needle. And I think that's 100% right. It shows, it just shows a massive difference of understanding where the true strategy needs to be. But I think, again, if anything, I'll say it like for the 10th time this show, it tracks. Like, that's what I think my biggest knock on Trump is right now, is just like how poorly the campaign has been managed with some of these statements. And I think let me put it like this too. Like, in 2020, we had Judas Pence, right? Mike Pence turns his back on Trump essentially, and goes ahead and what's the word? I guess certifies the ballots or the electors. And knowing that all of this that was on the table, knowing that all that was at stake, knowing how just egregious that the vote had been, knowing just how much fortifying the election that had been done, and then saying, and he has these defensive like, well, I did it for the Constitution. And it's like, really, dude? Like, you did it for the people who want to rip apart the Constitution? But then again, that's a side point. But just to say, we just experienced that in 2020. And then you go and you pick for your vice president when you could have went with a sequitur, really, like a Doug Burgum, or you could have went with the galvanizer of what would have garnered people from the moderate to the libertarians, which would have been Vivek. You go with a former never Trumper named JD Vance, who has like written about like things in the past where he hates where he comes from. He hates white people. He's made notes of like, well, this must be why everybody's married outside of white people in our family. And like all these kind of like weird things. Like he was even comparing Trump to Hitler as early as like 2021. And it just is like, who really? It was just like, you know, like, it just like one of those, it's just like, that just seems retarded to me. Like he would have been like the worst option out of that. And I can't see any pro to have taken him over the other guys. Like I get Vivek has a chance to usurp you essentially, in terms of charisma and draw public appeal. But like, if your goal is to win and save the country, then who cares who's doing it, man? Just like do the thing that you think is necessary. But we're not getting that. We're getting a lot of this pandering. We're getting a lot of like repeat mistakes, a lot of stuff that we were being told like it's not going to happen. You know, we get these reassurances from Kash Patel, like we got a lot better management going on. It's like, really, dude? You even have Chris C. Levita like has like public tweets where he liked about like how January 6ers deserve worse treatment and things like that. It's like, it just like, I could tell you right now, you could probably fire everybody in that campaign staff, and I could go to a random town here in Ohio out in the countryside, and I could find 4 people who ain't going to let Trump down. I don't know how that's such a hard concept to stretch across. It makes you think like, is there really these donations tied in that he's kind of being not blackmailed, but influenced or encouraged to make these choices? And go just saying JD is doing his best Trump impression right now. I think JD is doing a lot to move away from all of his previous rhetoric. I guess I'm somebody who has a hard time buying it. Because for example, like I'm younger than JD Vance by like about 10 years. And even in you know, in 2020, or I guess like in 2016, 2017, 2018, I knew that Trump wasn't Hitler. Like I knew these were just like completely like erratic attacks meant to downplay all of his like just raw capitalism, his raw like galvanized energy for like the American people to go against essentially everything or where there was the status quo. And for somebody who's older than me, who went to Yale and did all this, like this BS, is like, I don't really buy it, dude. And it kind of reeks of like he's going to stab him in the back somewhere. It reeks of like, we're going to have another Mike Pence moment 2.0 where there is a viable chance that JD Vance does something that negatively affects Trump in a very, very, very important way. But I guess I'll leave it at there. Main points really being, we need to course correct. We need to not get people to blackpill. I will echo that from the quartering. I guess I'm not blackpilling. I'm just saying be aware of the possibility that we have lost a lot more momentum than you may realize, especially regarding the assassination attempt, and especially moving on forward beyond the RNC that already had infighting. So we need to be prepared for some of this stuff. But again, that's going to be all from me for the solo show today. I'm going to go check out the memberships before I do sign off. So stay here if you would like to actually be gifted one, because I think you have to be in the chat currently for me to do that. And secondly, make sure you do check out the jar openers. We will be doing that at 8 o'clock tonight. It'll be on World's channel and mine, possibly, if I can get it to work correctly. So let me actually go. Thank you guys. I do appreciate that very much. I'm actually going to see right now if I can figure out what to do for the memberships. I think I actually have to view it on YouTube. Let me check this out, guys. It might take me a minute to figure it out. I did it with World not too long ago. I did like the other day. We did it on his channel. I think I have to actually go and view it on my own personal channel. Oh, man. But I think it allows you guys to use like extra emojis and stuff. I'm pretty sure. But let me go here. I have to make sure like I take words correctly. Ooh, hate hearing myself talk again. I do appreciate you guys jumping in. Yeah, it was a lovely show, especially when you guys engage a lot more. Like, dude, it makes it a lot more enjoyable for me. Engage with my audience. Start a Q&A. Start a poll. Oh yeah, I forgot I can do that. There's a membership thing here somewhere. Am I retarded? I could honestly be completely retarded. The Joe Rogan and Tim Pool predicted a Harris win. I think I think Tim Pool's getting to that level because of the way everyone's reacting, and the way that people are kind of blackpilling out about it. I didn't see Joe Rogan say that though. I'm like, I did this the other day. I'm so sorry. I can't believe how do I do this, man? Is it on my end of the live streaming? It might even be actually in my actual little pop-out chat thing. Let me check this out here. Community moderation participants. No, it's not that. Dude, I am retarded, I think. I think I am literally autistic. I saw it the other day. No, I can't find it for the life of me. Maybe it's another one of those things they're doing to F me over. It's not that. Well, that sucks. I'm sorry. Wonder if maybe I just look it up. I literally did it the other day. I swear to God, I'm not joking you. Okay, within the live chat, click membership gifting. Am I like ineligible to do it for some reason now? I'm on the chat here. Show chat. It's this one. Add emotes. It's not that one. It's not there. I'm interesting. I'm wondering if it's because my AdSense account isn't like all the way up to date. That could just be because I'm literally just stupid. I apologize though. Moderation activity timestamps, reactions, pop out chat. It's none of these, man. Oh, I think I have to enable them on my back end. Okay. Well, I'm gonna write that in my notes. I have to enable them on the back end. I don't think I have them enabled. I will enable channel memberships, and next show, I think I have 10 free ones to give away. So the first 10 people who are in the chat for my next show, which I'm gonna probably stream at random, but I do generally put out notices on X and on YouTube. I try my best to put notices out. I will gift those memberships out, especially to Kev Doge, Sander Clegane, and I think I had, Mr. Cigarello. You three were in here quite a bit today. I'll put you at the top of the list. Marina P, I think you were in here as well. Check it out. I got U5, and then I had a bunch more earlier, actually. I'll have to scroll up and check out. Yeah, see Michael Cigarello. I will mark all you guys as well, so if I see you on the next stream, come probably either Monday or Tuesday, one of those 2 days. Free memberships for you guys, and I'll try to max out the perks with those as much as I can. So with that being said, thank you everybody for being here. I love doing it. This is a passion of mine. But check out me and What in the World doing jar openers later tonight at 8 p.m. on his channel. That is again at What in the WARROL. What in the World. But once again, huge appreciation to you guys, especially for me being such a small time guy. I try to make as best and professional as I possibly can. So hopefully you guys enjoy what I've been trying to do. But with that being said, Christ is King, and let's not blackpill. Let's march on. And hopefully to see you there on jar openers. Peace out. Take care, guys.